Good morning. Buenos dias, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Antonio. My name is Nicole Meneses, and I'm an elementary school librarian in NAISD. It is vital that all of my students have the opportunity to find books that will open their mind to the lives of others, and to find books that they can see themselves in, but also find books that will open their mind to the lives of others. Reading teaches empathy and sparks curiosity to learn more about our world. Our weekly worship is where we connect, share information, and inspiration. Let's acknowledge this geographic place we are currently located. Yanawana, the home and traditional lands of the Coahuiltecan people, the original and the indigenous stewards of this land to which we all belong. We now call San Antonio, Bexar County, and Texas. Let us also bear in mind that the many indigenous people have not been recognized by our federal government, even as they continue to live among us today as vital contributors to and for our communities. Indeed, we speak these truths as one small step toward becoming the diverse and multicultural community of communities we aspire to be. At our church, we strive to enact a universal love that binds us in mutual care and affection, especially in our work for justice for all and for our planet. Our faith is inclusive, and all means all. If you are new to us or are visiting for the first time today, we welcome you to fill out a yellow visitor's card. We'd like to get to know you and follow up with you. Wherever you are on your life's journey, we hope that you will find a place with us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Terry Palin, and I presently serve as the president of the Board of Trustees. I was a high school librarian for 46 years, retiring 4 years ago. And during that time, I made sure that my high school my libraries had titles of all kinds so that students could choose what book they wanted to read. I pushed the age appropriateness boundaries sometimes, but I felt that having books for all students to read and interests made the library a safe place for them, where they could explore and learn free from censorship. I have always felt that students should have the material that they want to read and what reflects their lives and the people in their lives. In my opinion, when librarians consider what is age appropriate for their students, a broad view should be used, because a book that may not be appropriate for one child might be fine for another child. That really is the choice of the student or the child and the parent. But parents, school officials, and politicians should not be allowed to dictate what other children read. I believed that from the first day on the job to the last 46 years ago, and I still believe that today. And now it's time for us to turn to one another to exchange greetings of peace. Say hello to someone you know, someone you don't know, and as a sign of our radical hospitality and our will to be together. Hi. As we come back to our seats, we UUs just love to talk, don't we? We love to. Our guest speaker today, Jennifer Eckerd, is a library support specialist in Northside ISD. She has been in education for 22 years. Jennifer attended high school in San Antonio and earned her bachelor's and master's degree from Texas State. She taught third grade for 4 years at Leander ISD and then spent 2 years as an instructional technology facilitator. She earned a second master's in informational studies at UT Austin. When she and her husband moved back, David is right in the front row here, when she and her husband moved back to San Antonio, she worked for 10 years as an elementary school librarian until being tapped for the Northside District Library job, which she presently holds. She has been a member of the Texas Library Association and has served as chair of District 10 of that organization. Jennifer is presently the chair-elect of the Children's Roundtable. I have known Jennifer for several years in Northside. She is funny and a truly nice person. She brings a passion for intellectual freedom for everyone and is against book censorship of most kinds, all kinds. It says just censorship, so I thought I'd live there. Please welcome Jennifer Eckerd to our pulpit.
I'm told that this is the part where I just say hello, and then the words I wrote down come later. So thank you for having me. I'm really pleased to be here and honored to have been invited.
All right. Now it's time to rise as you're willing and able and sing our opening hymn, number 324, Where My Freedom Spirit Onward Leads.
Hello. Oh, it works. My name is Renee Wood, and I am a retired public school English teacher and librarian, not as long as Terry, but I was there, for Northside. And I believe in the fundamental right to choose what one wants to read without interference from politicians, governments, or other individuals. Today we light this chalice, as we always do, to shed light on truths, to illuminate our path, and to fend off darkness that seeks to obscure the full breadth of life's experience. And in particular today, let us center in the light our work for the freedom to read, learn, and live. May it be so.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tracey Knouse. I'm a public librarian with San Antonio Public System. I work at the Tobin Library at Oakwell. I did a career change to become a librarian, particularly for public librarians, because I like the diversity of the public library, of the customers that come in, as well as the public library is open to everyone. So just like the library is open to everyone to come, I think the materials that are offered should be available for all and all types with no interference by others. So if you don't like it, don't check it out, is my philosophy. So, and I'll just mention Diane was my mentor, and she helped me get into grad school, and I made a career change, so lifelong friend. We're going to recite the words of our covenant, first in English and then in Spanish, and the words are up here on the screen or in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, serve humanity and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. El amor es la doctrina de esta iglesia. Su sacramento es la búsqueda de la verdad, y su oración es el servicio. Convive en paz, buscar sabiduría en la piedad, da a la humanidad nuestro servicio fraternal, para que todas las almas crezcan en armonía con la divinidad. Así partamos el uno con el otro.
My name is Diane Duesterhoeft. I've been a member here at First UU since 1995, and I've been a reference and instruction librarian at St. Mary's University's Bloom Library since 1993. Intellectual freedom, exposure to multiple disciplines, viewpoints, and perspectives is a central theme to a well-rounded liberal arts education, and that's why I believe intellectual freedom is essential. It's time now to share our joys and sorrows. Let us reflect, remembering that ours is a welcoming community that connects us, a spiritual community that enlivens us, a sharing community that amplifies our joys, a caring community that hears our sorrows and holds us in compassion. May we listen more deeply, see each other more clearly, and grow closer to each other each time we gather together. All are invited to mindfully come forward down the side aisles and light a candle, returning up the center aisle as suits your path to your seat. Please keep in mind that physical distancing not only affords comfort to others, but helps save lives. From our community book of joys and sorrows. Sorrow for the flooding in Kentucky and the lives that were swept away. Sorrow for trying to get a surgery date, hopeful that I will get one soon. Happy 4th birthday to Milo Evans. Thanks to Arliss Olson for organizing the joyful Get Out the Vote letter writing party last week. So join with me in a moment of prayerful reflection. Take a deep, cleansing breath and exhale. For all our joys, sorrows, and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, may we feel empathy and compassion. May the caring of our community offer a space of deep kindness, loving, and just action.
I'm Wendy Friedman, and I worked for 26 years with the San Antonio Public Library System. And I guess you could say those were the good old days, because I rarely had occasion to be concerned with the issue of censorship back then. Unfortunately, that's no longer true, but I am proud of our city library's commitment to intellectual freedom. And I'm also grateful that at least there is nothing better at increasing attention and interest in a book or enhancing its readership than to ban it. So let's keep reading on. I'm going to share with you today a book that I remember when it came out in 2005. It's a lovely story, one of my favorites, so I look forward to reading it. And children, you might want to come forward, because I think we are going to have the pages turned for you. Is that the case? Oh, okay. You want to come up? Excuse me? I'll have to stay up here. Okay. Yeah. So children, would you like to come up? You can sit on this stage. Yeah. Everyone else gets to hear the words, which are worth it alone, but the pictures certainly are a nice added bonus. This story is called And Tango Makes Three. In the middle of New York City, there's a great big park called Central Park. Children love to play there. It has a toy boat pond where they can sail their boats. It has a carousel to ride on in the summer and an ice rink to skate on in the winter. Best of all, it has its very own zoo. Every day, families of all kinds go to visit the animals that live there. But children and their parents aren't the only families at the zoo. The animals make families of their own. There are red panda bear families with mothers and fathers and furry red panda cubs. There are monkey dads and monkey moms raising noisy monkey babies. And there are toad families and toucan families and cotton-top tamarin families too. And in the penguin house, there are penguin families. Every year at the same time, the girl penguins start noticing the boy penguins, and the boy penguins start noticing the girls. When the right girl and the right boy find each other, they become a couple. Two penguins in the penguin house were a little bit different. One was named Roy, and the other was named Silo. Roy and Silo were both boys, but they did everything together. They bowed to each other and walked together. They sang to each other and swam together. Wherever Roy went, Silo went too. They didn't spend much time with the girl penguins, and the girl penguins didn't spend much time with them. Instead, Roy and Silo wound their necks around each other. Their keeper, Mr. Gramsay, noticed the two penguins and thought to himself, they must be in love. Roy and Silo watched how the other penguins made a home, so they built a nest of stones for themselves. Every night, Roy and Silo slept there together, just like the other penguin couples. And every morning, Roy and Silo woke up together. But one day, Roy and Silo saw that the other couples were doing something that they could not. The mama penguin would lay an egg. She and the papa penguin would take turns keeping the egg warm until finally it would hatch. And then there would be a baby penguin. Roy and Silo had no egg to sit on and keep warm. They had no baby chick to feed and cuddle and love. Their nest was nice, but it was a little empty. One day, Roy found something that looked like what the other penguins were hatching, and he brought it to their nest. It was only a rock, but Silo carefully sat on it and sat. When Silo got sleepy, he slept, and when Silo was done sleeping and sitting, he swam, and Roy sat. Day after day, Silo and Roy sat on the rock, but nothing happened. Then Mr. Gramsay got an idea. He found an egg that needed to be cared for, and he brought it to Roy and Silo's nest. Roy and Silo knew just what to do. They moved the egg to the center of their nest. Every day they turned it so each side stayed warm. Some days Roy sat while Silo went for food. Other days it was Silo's turn to take care of their egg. They sat in the morning and they sat at night. They sat through lunchtime and swim time and supper. They sat at the beginning of the month and they sat at the end of the month. And they sat all the days in between. Until one day, they heard a sound coming from inside their egg. Beep, 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 it said. Roy and Silo called back. Squawk, squawk. Beep, beep, answered the egg. Suddenly, a tiny hole appeared in the egg's shell. And then, crack! Out came their very own baby. She had fuzzy white feathers and a funny black beak. Now, Roy and Silo were fathers. We'll call her Tango, Mr. Gramsay decided, because it takes two to make a tango. Roy and Silo taught Tango how to sing for them when she was hungry. They fed her food from their beaks. They snuggled her in their nest at night. Tango was the very first penguin in the zoo to have two daddies. Soon Tango grew strong enough to leave the nest. Roy and Silo took her for a swim, just like the other penguin families. And all the children who came to the zoo could see Tango and her fathers playing in the penguin house with the other penguins. Hooray, Roy! Hooray, Silo! Welcome, Tango, they cheered. At night, the three penguins returned to their nest. There they snuggled together, and like all the other penguins in the penguin house, and all the other animals in the zoo, and all the families in the big city around them, they went to sleep. Now I'd like to invite the children to exit to the playground while we sing you out.
My name is Carol Collins. After many years of teaching secondary math and science, I served as a K-12 school librarian and then as a public librarian for children with the San Antonio Public Library. At my first school library, I discovered a box of full Scholastic Publishing's Goosebumps books hidden from the children. Someone explained to me that parent permission was required since the books were pure evil. Scholastic was not known for publishing evil. After some research, I put the books back on the student shelves. Our church has a larger purpose to support all of us in becoming more generous in giving of our time, talent, and treasure, all in a context of trust. For those of you viewing online, we invite you to make a contribution on website or on the link in the chat stream. Those of us here in the sanctuary may contribute to our church in the baskets passed by our ushers. Will the ushers please come forward?
My one companion, you were all that mattered. You were once a friend and father, then my world was shattered. Wishing you were somehow here again. Wishing you were somehow near. Sometimes it seemed if I just dreamed, somehow you would be here. Wishing I could hear your voice again. of you won't help me to do all that you dreamed I could. Passing bells and sculpted angels, cold and monumental, seem for you the wrong companions. You were warm and gentle. Too many years fighting back tears. Why can't the past just die? Wishing you were somehow here again, knowing we must say goodbye. Try to forgive, teach me to live, give me the strength to try. No more memories, no more silent tears, no more gazing across the wasted years. Help me say goodbye.
We bless these offerings we have received. May we live the true spirit of our UU tradition to be generous and kind to ourselves, the people we know, and the people we have yet to meet. May our blessings be multiplied through our sharing of them. Amen.
Well, I got a frog in my throat, like, just before I came up here, so I hope I don't cough my way through this. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Terry, for inviting me and everyone who had a hand in setting today up. I'm just really humbled and honored to have been asked to do this. When I was a small child, before I had learned to read, I had a set of little picture books that came with a corresponding cassette tape. I could load the tape that matched the book into my little Fisher-Price cassette player and turn it on and listen to a story anytime I wanted. I still remember that little chime that told you when to turn the page, just exactly how it sounded. There was one particular book in that set that I listened to so much that I could recite it from memory. It was The Story About Ping by Marjorie Flack. This is not the copy from my childhood. I found this in a used bookstore as an adult, long after the one from when I was a kid had been given away or sold in a garage sale or lost. Though I lost track of the physical book, the story has remained with me my whole life. I sought it out again as an adult and used it as the last read aloud of the year each year that I was a school librarian. I used it because it's still, 90 years after its publication, an engaging story, but also as a way to convey to my students the power of stories that stick with us. This was one of many stories that impacted my young life. It was an important part of my reading journey. And I'm not entirely sure why this book in particular created such a strong association in my brain. I just connected with this little duck who hid from the boatmaster when he was the last to return to the boat so he wouldn't get a spanking. I was definitely a child who avoided getting in trouble. But I also remember empathizing with Ping's loneliness during the time he was lost from his family. Don't worry, they're happily reunited in the end. I remember imagining what it would be like to be lost and feeling those feelings of fear and loneliness as I read about Ping trying to find his wise-eyed boat on the Yangtze River. I wasn't scared or alone, but this book allowed me to explore those feelings in a safe way so that when I did feel alone or scared in real life, I had some experience managing those emotions. If any kind of magic exists, it's this ability of stories, music, plays, movies, and art to communicate feelings and experiences, to elicit emotional responses and create connections between people almost in defiance of time and space. Hopefully many of you have similar stories about books that made an impact in your life. Memories of being read to as a child, or of sharing a good book with a friend, or raging about an assigned reading that you hated in school, or clandestinely passing flowers in the attic onto your BFF. I'm sure there are several factors that made me such an avid reader. My parents both read and still read all the time. They took me and my sister to the public library regularly. There were lots of books and magazines in our house. We received them as gifts or sometimes just because. We had well-stocked school libraries with professional librarians at every public school I attended. We had teachers who read books aloud to us. But the one factor that I keep coming back to in my mind is that my parents basically let me and my sister read whatever we wanted. Within reason, they pretty much left us alone. They figured if it was a book we got at the school library, it was fine. And when we got older and started reading more adult material, they made sure to engage with us about what we were reading and let us know that we could go to them with any questions. Talking about what books you were reading was just a normal part of our conversation in my household growing up. I'm thankful that my parents made the conscious decision to trust me and my sister when it came to reading, to give us pretty much free rein to build our reading lives, and for modeling a way of life that weaves books in among its other threads. I was lucky in that regard. Not all children experience that same kind of freedom. Not all children live in homes with overflowing bookshelves or go to schools with robust library collections and a librarian to guide them through the stacks and help them find that just right book. Not all children live in areas with easy access to a public library or with parents that have the time or ability to take them on a regular basis. According to End Book Deserts, a nonprofit organization that advocates for children in high poverty areas, approximately 45% of our nation's children live in neighborhoods that, quote, lack public libraries and stores that sell books, or in homes where books are unaffordable or unfamiliar luxury. A 2021 report from the School Librarian Investigation, Decline or Evolution, or SLIDE research project, found a 20% decrease from the decade prior in the number of school districts nationwide with school librarians, a fate this area has thankfully avoided thus far. More disturbingly, the decline wasn't equitable. Quote, smaller rural districts and those with higher proportions of English language learners, Hispanic students, and low-income students were more likely to lack a librarian, unquote, which means they're also likely to lack a library with a current diverse collection curated to their needs and wants within their school walls. Oh, and don't worry, I'm a librarian, so I have a list of these citations. If you're interested, I hope you accept MLA format. In addition, reading for pleasure among both children and adults has been in decline for some time. Although the pandemic did send those numbers back up a bit, as well as contribute to an increase in book sales, we gotta take those silver linings where we can get them, right? Educators and researchers like Donald Miller, Kelly Gallagher, and Penny Kittle have for decades been calling attention to decreasing amounts of time for students to read in school, lack of choice in reading materials in schools and at home, and a focus more on passing tests than building students into readers. If we're not focusing on building readers at schools, how many students do you think can and will do it on their own? Not many. Not to mention these babies. Children, teens, and adults report that their attention is repeatedly pulled away from other tasks, including reading, by their phones and other devices. In fact, social media and other apps are designed to keep you engaged, to keep you coming back to pick up your phone again and again. I can personally attest to this fact. I often have to make a conscious effort to put down the phone and pick up a book to read. I have very carefully selected the apps that I allow to notify me at all about anything. But most kids haven't done that. And they don't even necessarily have the maturity, skills, or willpower to ignore something this shiny and interesting. Although they do make it really easy to get an ebook or audiobook when you need one in a pinch, right? Silver linings. I'm sure right about now you're wondering whether you read that marquee outside correctly. You did. This speech is about censorship. But I wanted to bring all that up to illustrate an important point. As teachers, librarians, and parents who want to encourage children to read, who want to help our students and children to build robust reading lives and become lifelong readers, we are already fighting an uphill battle. There are already many difficult changes to overcome, and it seems as if a new roadblock has been set in our path, that of censorship. But I'm going to make you wait just a little longer to really delve into that subject, because we can't talk about that without first talking about self-selected reading. It's becoming increasingly clear through research that allowing children to self-select their reading material and giving them the time to read it makes huge differences in whether they continue to read for pleasure. Students who are allowed to choose what they read and who have time to read it enjoy reading more and become better readers because they read more because they enjoy it. Students who read for pleasure do better in school because they have developed the stamina and practice of reading that can carry them through the more demanding reading that they face in high school and college. Students who read for pleasure, even if it's fiction, have bigger vocabularies and can more easily empathize with other people. Reading for pleasure allows students to imagine worlds and people different from their own, which allows them to interact in our diverse world more effectively and empathetically. A diverse collection of books for students to choose from and teachers and librarians to help them navigate it can enable children to see themselves in the literature they read, which can provide them with a sense of belonging and help them make sense of their world and their place in it. These are just some of the reasons the current spate of book challenges is so disappointing and frankly a little terrifying. Of course, book censorship is nothing new. It has been around as long as the printed word has. But there has been a marked increase the last couple of years in both challenges and removal of titles from classrooms and school libraries, and sometimes even public libraries. First, some definitions. These are from the American Library Association's Challenge Support website, which I encourage you to visit because it's full of great information. A challenge is an attempt to remove or restrict materials based upon the objections of a person or group. A banning is the removal of those materials. Challenges do not simply involve a person expressing a point of view. Rather, they are an attempt to remove material from the curriculum or library, thereby restricting the access of others. Censorship is a change in the access status of a material based on the content of the work and made by a governing authority or its representatives. Such changes might include exclusion, restriction, removal, or age and grade level changes. Intellectual freedom is the right of every individual to both seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. It provides for free access to all expression of ideas through which any and all sides of a question, cause, or movement may be explored. According to a New York Times article from this past April, and actually one popped up in my phone from today about banned books, the American Library Association said it counted 729 challenges in 2021 to library, school, and university materials, as well as research databases and ebook platforms. Each challenge can contain multiple titles, and the association tracked 1,597 individual books that were either challenged or removed. And this is all based on self-reporting from librarians, so we don't even know how many challenges went unreported or how many books were pulled without going through the challenge process. Most of the challenge titles are about Black and LGBTQ people. Additionally, the tactics being used to target these books have become increasingly heavy-handed and political, with governors, senators, and other public officials sometimes calling for criminal charges against librarian employees just for stocking books containing this material. I'm sure you all remember that list of 850 books that Texas Representative Matt Krause sent to the Department of Education and all superintendents last fall, and the subsequent response from Governor Abbott. It was a tough time to be a school librarian, I'll tell you that. The fervor over this led to some districts and even some public library systems to make rash decisions based on fear, to pull books without giving them due consideration, to disregard their own adopted policies and deny access of materials to students and the public, to unilaterally override the careful selection decisions of the librarians they hired to do that job. We have also seen a large number of challenges coming not from a parent whose child just brings a book home that they object to, but from large politicized organizations. Organizations using words like liberty in their names while at the same time deciding what books everyone else gets to have access to. Now, let me be clear. Parents, of course, have the right to be involved in the choices of reading materials that their young kids make. In fact, as educators, we welcome parent involvement. Students whose parents are involved in their education, like students who read for pleasure, do better in school. Not every family is going to be okay letting their kids read whatever they want, and that's absolutely fine and absolutely their right. The whole purpose of libraries is to provide access to a wide variety of material that serves the need of whatever community that library caters to. And then individuals and family get to choose how to interact with that collection in a way that makes sense for them and aligns with their values. But what we can't allow to happen is for politicized groups of people to steamroll over carefully thought out selection policies that are already in place for school and public libraries. What we can't allow is for misinformation and disinformation that spreads like wildfire online to push us into hasty decisions born out of fear. These kinds of reactions pose an existential threat to the liberty and democratic principles on which this nation was founded. School and public libraries have collection policies that govern how librarians choose materials. They also have a process in place for challenges to library materials. These processes involve making sure the person submitting the challenge has read the entirety of the item, not just an offending paragraph. Normally, once a challenge is submitted, a diverse committee will be formed to also read the material in its entirety and consider it in light of the selection policy to decide whether it meets that criteria. The committee can then choose to retain the material, to restrict access to it, or to remove it entirely. And then the library must abide by that decision. Most library systems also have in their challenge process a way for an item to be re-challenged after a certain period of time. School and public libraries should not be removing books based on an angry tweet or Facebook post. They must follow the process already in place. I feel like there is so much more to say on this subject, more to say on how removing books by and for the most marginalized people in our society hurts the people in those groups, more to say on how important reading for pleasure is to our society and our way of life, more to say on how harmful removing access to diverse books is for all kids in our schools, more to say on the ways professional librarians make collection decisions and the differences between collection development and censorship. I could go on and on about this, but they said I only have 15 minutes, so I suppose I should start wrapping this up. So let me end by giving you some concrete actions that you can take right now to help. Number one, join Texans for the Right to Read at texansfortherighttoread.com. You can get out your phone to do that if you want. I won't be mad. And that's Texans with an N. This is a grassroots coalition organized by the Texas Library Association, and they're working to fight these kinds of bans. If you have school-aged children, or honestly, even if you don't, go express your support to their teachers, administrators, and librarians. Hearing supportive statements is sometimes rare for us in education. Sometimes all we hear is the yelling. 3, express your support for the freedom to read to your local school board because they are definitely only hearing the yelling. And when all you hear is opposition, you are inclined to believe that that's the majority position even when it's not. 4, express your support for the freedom to read to your local, state, and national representatives, even if you don't think they'll listen. They too need to hear both sides. And lastly, speaking of school boards, please consider running for open positions on them. The Northside ISD alone will have 4 open school board positions coming up in the spring. There are organizations out there that can help you run a campaign. The marquee outside listed the title for today's talk as Libraries Fighting Censorship, but it can't just be libraries and librarians. We must all fight for our freedom to read. Thank you.
I I can't thank Jennifer enough for coming here. I cannot thank Marilyn Stavino enough for suggesting this topic or this service today, so thank you, Marilyn. Outside in the narthex out there in the foyer, there is a display of some challenged books. Some of those books were from my personal collection or my daughter's personal collection, and some were from the public library. So please take a look at those too, and there are little cards that tell you why they were challenged. As we leave, oh, I'm sorry, we have a closing hymn, don't we? Once again, rise as you're willing and able, and to sing our closing hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. As we leave here today, let us keep in mind our fourth principle, which states that we who use believe in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And let us be in partnership with parents and caregivers, administrators and librarians, and stand firm in our belief that reading choice leads to stronger readers, critical thinkers, lifelong learners, and empathetic citizens essential to our democracy. May it be so. Ashe. Amen.